Okay,
Hello.
we're here.
Okay. Um, let's start the hearing and see where it goes. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is December 12th, 2023 at 7:08 p.m. And we have before us the application of Michael and Sarah McGrath, um, represented by their attorney, Ned Corcoran. The application concerns 132 Ford Ranch Road in Milton, Massachusetts. My name is John Leonard. I'm chairman of the Board of Appeals. And with me this evening on our panel is Jeffrey Mullen and Frank O'Brien. This particular application concerns the application seeking to create a two-lot subdivision off of the cul-de-sac at Ford Ranch Road. And the property is in a residence AA zoning district. And here the applicant is seeking to divide the two lots into two, each of which has plenty of minimum area requirements met. But one of the parcels, parcel A, has a frontage of 144.56 feet when the minimum is 150 as required by the bylaw. So as I said, the applicant's represented by Mr. Nick Corcoran, and I think unless well, let me cover a couple of other things. We have before us the application, which is filed by Mr. Corcoran. It was dated October 16, 2023. We have a plan showing the subject property and various lots, and we have received three letters from neighbors regarding this application. Judith George at 52 Ford Ranch Road, Paul Carty at 92 Ford Ranch Road, and Edward Rantel of 110 Ford Ranch Road. And they all basically say the same thing. They say they're writing on behalf of their neighbors, the McGraths, in support of this application to allow them to divide their lot, one large lot, into two lots, and that they think the division of the lots is appropriate. It's in keeping with the other properties in the neighborhood, and they urge the Board of Appeals to vote favorably on this particular application. So we thank the three citizens for supporting the applicant and for participating in this hearing. So I think without further ado, Mr. Cor-
Okay, John, you're just freezing there for a minute. But for the record, Ned Corcoran, on behalf of Mike and Sarah McGrath, who are present on the Zoom. Should I pause for a moment?
I think what you mostly need to do is improve the internet service over at Indian Cliffs.
Yeah, it'd be something that maybe the homeowners association could get together and do that.
So Whittier Road.
I hesitate to start
Yeah,
any.
let me see. Maybe I'll call him, okay, and
Yeah.
see if what his situation is. It's a good point, Ned. Thank you. Okay, I have a report from the chairman. There was a pole out in front of his house trying to fix the internet. Proved to be unsuccessful. He's going to try to reconnect with just the audio,
Okay,
and then I'll run the hearing, okay?
okay.
I don't want you to hold me to the chair standard.
It's a very high standard.
You got that right. So just bear with us, Ned, if you don't mind, okay?
Not at
Sorry.
all. Not at all. I've got, I'm item number 6 on the Concom agenda. That meeting doesn't
Of
start
course
till
you are.
7:30. We still have plenty of time. No.
John, are you there? John? He's gonna just dial in.
I was just about to ask whether that would be something he could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I gave him the number and the webinar information. We'll see.
Okay.
I don't know if the phones are out over there.
I think this is him. I'm promoting him over.
Here we go.
I am now unmuted.
We can hear you.
Can you-
Okay, great.
All right, do you want to proceed?
No, you proceed. It's much smoother if you can
Yeah,
see the
okay. All right.
bodies and see what's going on.
So for the record, we've had an interruption in the hearing due to a internet failure with the chair. So the chair has asked me, Jeff Mullen, a member of the board, to continue the hearing, which I'll now do, and hand the agenda over to Mr. Corkin, which I believe is where we suspended the hearing. Mr. Corkin, welcome to the Board of Appeals.
Thank you, Jeff. Nice to be back. It's been a while. But appreciate the time. So I'm joined by Michael and Sarah McGrath, who are the owners of the property at 132 Ford Ranch Road. It is the property at the end of Ford Ranch Road, which ends in a cul-de-sac. Ford Ranch Road was a subdivision that was developed in the early 1960s. And 132 is the last of the properties at the end of the road. It has a cul-de-sac bulb in the property, and the property has frontage on that cul-de-sac. It is a large parcel, approximately 10 acres in size, lots of wetland on it, but a large parcel, and they're seeking to divide it in two. If I can share a screen for a moment, I'll bring up.
Please.
Let's see. I had something ready to go. Oh, I know what's going on. All right. Let me just. Can you see that?
Yes.
That is Ford Ranch Road. The property at the end is the McGrath property, 132. We added, I think there was John mentioned that there were 3 letters received this afternoon. There was a 4th letter received late that I forwarded in through Julia early this evening, and that came from Tara Withington at 71 Ford Ranch Road. So the letters that you received were from Judith George at 52, Tara Withington at 71, Paul Carty at 92, and Ed Rentel at 110. You don't have letters from either Tony Campo at 91 or the McCanns at 111, but we know that they spoke to the McCanns, and McCanns indicated they had no problem, but preferred not to write a letter. We never heard back from Tony Campo, but we haven't heard. I don't think he's present. I'm not sure that they have any objection. So the property, as I said, was developed in the early 60s, and at the time it was a Residence A district. It's now Residence AA. The lots are on Ford Ranch Road are all substantially 40,000 square feet or more, have 150 feet of frontage or more. And as I said, 132 has a substantially greater land area and frontage of almost 300 feet on the circle. The plan is to divide it at least in two, with at least 2 acres to be sold as a vacant lot and the balance in some form to remain with 132. What's interesting, and more recently, is that in 2017, the planning board approved a cluster subdivision under the town's cluster bylaw, which allows smaller lots to be developed in greater density, provided that the area is left to open space and with other provisions associated with it. Wentworth Farm Road is that clustered subdivision, and it's interesting that 23 and 24 Wentworth Road share a similar sort of frontage on the end of a cul-de-sac. But the length of the cul-de-sac, the frontage on each is 66 feet and change and 69 feet and change. And these are roughly 40,000 square foot lots. So they're smaller than the 80,000 that would be required otherwise. And that as I said, that cluster subdivision was approved by the planning board under that special permit process in 2017. So really what we're asking is for a similar type of outcome relative to this lot as these 2 lots have here. I don't see there's there's no detriment to the neighborhood. It is a the frontage requirement or the frontage relief is de minimis, as I say. It's less than 4% off of 150 feet as the required minimum. And with the support of neighbors, we think it's an appropriate request. So I would turn it over now to the board for questions for that.
Thank you, Mr. Corcoran. Let me ask my colleagues if they've got any questions they'd like to address to the applicant or the applicant's counsel this time. Mr. O'Brien,
No questions at this time, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Leonard.
I have no questions at this time.
Thank you. I have a question. I have a couple of questions, Mr. Corcoran. Did you get a denial letter from the, let me, before I say that, let me acknowledge that the board has in fact received the 4 letters. We've got them in the file and Julia has provided them to us. In terms of questions, did you receive a denial did you submit for a building permit application, receive a denial from the town?
I started to request the building permit and the new building commissioner said I didn't need to do that. Please just go ahead and file your application for relief. So no denial letter was ever issued. I think Joe Achu, the new building commissioner, has a different take on this than Joe Prondak did previously.
Yeah. Well, I just note that's a new procedure, at least for me. I'm not sure if it's right or wrong, but I just note that to the chair as well.
No, I agree. I started that process by filing for a building permit. And he short-circuited it and said, please just go ahead and file. And when I walked in.
Irrespective of whether or not you filed for a building permit, are you representing to the board that it's your client's intention to build a house on the lot?
My client's intention is to sell the lot as a separate buildable lot. We still have to go to the
Parcel
planning
A.
board. We would still have to go to the planning board for approval of an approval not required subdivision plan. But step 1 is that we need relief from this board from the minimum frontage requirements. And then we would take an A&R plan to the planning board for approval to carve the lot.
Is the proposed A&R plan, is the A&R plan that you've proposed with frontage on lot A of 144.56?
Yes.
Is that going to be the same plan that you'll be taking to the planning board?
Yes.
All right. So, so the issue in front of us is the approval of a variance for parcel A as shown on this proposed subdivision plan, 132 Ford Ranch Road, Milton. The last date that I've got is December 17, 2021. Is that right?
Yeah, revised 11/1/2023.
11,
There's a revision date on that plan.
oh, I don't know if is that the colored one that you sent?
Yes,
All right, so I was gonna ask you that about that. They're a little bit different. On the colored one, there were two plans that came to us through the application process. One of them was a plan that was attached to your application. Your application dated October 16, 2023.
yeah.
And one of them was
All right.
a colored plan that was a separate PDF. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. The one I attached with the application was dated December 17, 2021.
Yeah.
Yep,
So that's the plan that's
That's
the
the plan.
operative plan.
that's right.
Okay. The one issue with that, so the plans that you submitted are a little bit different, and they're a little bit different in, I think, in an important way. The colored plan showed 150 feet I'm sorry, 50 feet on Ford Ranch Road, as if the cul-de-sac was not part of the public way. The new plan, the plan that you submitted with the application, shows, I think, what appears to be the correct frontage, but I just wanted to confirm that. So the total frontage on Ford Ranch Road for this lot today is 144.56 plus 150. So it's 200 and it's what you indicated in your application. I can't do the math that quickly. 294 feet, 56 inches. Is that right? Or no,
It's 150,
244 feet, 0.56, right?
right, it's 150 for
Yeah.
lot B,
Yeah.
parcel B, and, or the remaining area, and it's 144 point whatever, yeah, for the.
0.56.
Right,
Okay. So if you look at that plan in the little chart that's up on the right-hand corner under the existing,
mm-hmm,
in the third line down where it says frontage, I think that existing box should say 294.56. And not 150.
yeah, I think what the intent of the engineer was there, the surveyor was to say that was he's showing. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I just want to establish this principle, and that is that the McGraths currently have a lot on Ford Ranch Road that has 294.56 feet, period. They
Yeah,
want to subdivide that lot into two lots. One
Correct.
lot called parcel A that your testimony is that they intend to sell. Thank you. And one which we'll call the remaining area. The proposed lot to be sold is going to have, if this variance is approved, 144.56 feet of frontage on Ford Ranch Road. And the remainder lot, the lot on which the house is located, is going to have 150 feet. Is that right?
that's right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I'm sorry for that long-winded explanation, but I was thrown off by the two plans. I actually spent some time trying to figure out how, I looked at the 1966 plan. I tried to figure out whether Ford Ranch Road was the cul-de-sac was a public way. I think that's all true. I mean, we're going to take it from the testimony that it's a public way through the cul-de-sac, and that all we're being asked to do is approve a variance that would have a slightly smaller frontage than the 150 required, that being 144.56.
That's correct.
Okay.
And
all
I
right.
think I appreciate your pointing out the discrepancy in the frontages for that it should, right, the existing in the lot area has a 511,000 square feet,
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
But he only shows 150 feet
yeah,
of frontage.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's all.
Correct.
Just to make it consistent all the way down the column.
Right.
Yeah, okay. All right, that's great. All right, let me ask my colleagues if they've got anything they'd like to ask at this time. All right, hearing none. Is there
Hey,
anybody?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. O'Brien?
thank you. Just, I want to make sure that I want to make sure that I'm looking at the correct map to cite to in terms of the decision. So is the correct map to be cited to in the decision the one that is dated 12/17/21, revised 11/1/23? Is that the correct map to cite?
Well, that was part of my question, and
Yeah.
if it's a colored map, it's incorrect.
Well, that's what yeah, I want to make sure that whatever we do, that we're citing the correct map.
The problem with the colored map is it's only showing 50 feet on Ford Ranch Road.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure what map I'm looking at. You're looking at.
He came with the application to us anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's the one that is attached to the application, and it's dated 12/17/2021. And there is a box that says revised, but it's just several dashes. So,
The one that's the one that was submitted with the application. It's the one that I have that's actually stapled to my
Yes,
application.
yes,
yeah, that's the one I'm relying on.
Okay, that's,
But is that the one we should be relying on?
I think so.
Okay, yeah.
But should it be amended to have a revised date?
It perhaps should be amended to properly reflect the total frontage,
Yeah,
right? For the
yeah,
existing.
that's what I would do. And the reason why I think the application, the plan that was submitted with the application, that is the one that does not have the revision date, is the correct plan, is because this hearing is about frontage. And I know that the revised plan's got more information, but it has it has the wrong information on the frontage, at least according to the testimony. So for our purposes, I really think we need to rely on the plan that was submitted. But obviously, members of the board, I'm happy to hear you on that. But if you look at that colored plan with the revision on November 1, 2023, it's showing 50 feet of existing frontage, which would make you think that Ford Ranch Road stopped before the cul-de-sac. But we know that's not true.
That is not true, right?
Right.
So why don't
Ned,
why don't you revise the plan? Amend it.
We will
Then
do
you
that.
have a plan that's suitable for recording.
That's right, and
And it'll be consistent with the board's decision.
I will do that, and we'll do that in context with the preparation of the application for the A&R approval with the planning board. I think what I have to do is take your approval of the variance to the planning board for their endorsement of a plan that is approval not required under the subdivision control law.
Yeah. I mean, for our
But
purposes,
that wouldn't be a plan that's been before us. Wouldn't you want the planning board to be working with the plan that we've approved and cited to?
Yes, and if
You're going to
To
have
do
an
that-
inconsistency that I don't think you want to have.
no, but I would have to, then I would have to request a continuance with this board so that I can have that correction made on the other, on the plan, so that you're approving. So it'd be it would be this plan with a revision date of, December or January, for review and approval by the board, and then.
But why
attach
can't
them.
you move to amend the plan that way and then resubmit a new plan that is consistent with the amendment, and it'll be consistent with our decision, then it all can go to the planning board. Can't we allow an amendment to the plan and have Mr. Corcoran submit the revised plan that's consistent with the amendment that we've allowed?
Yeah, yeah.
Without continuing the hearing for another evidentiary hearing.
I think
I would
that-
support, yeah, go ahead.
That's
I'm sorry.
acceptable. Yeah, I think that's acceptable.
What I'm suggesting is that the plan, the base plan of December 17, 2021 needs to be corrected in one critical respect. And that is with respect to the existing frontage that's shown in the chart in the top right corner. It could also be updated to reflect other details that Mr. Corcoran may or may not want to show, or the client may or may not want to show. But in the critical area, it needs to be consistent in this respect, and that is that there's 294.56 feet of frontage on Ford Ranch Road, and that we're subdividing it to provide, or we're being asked to approve a subdivision, approve frontage of 144.56 on Lot A or Parcel A, and 150 in the original area. And the revised plan that Mr. Leonard referred to should be submitted to the Board of Appeals.
And with a new revised date, shouldn't it have a
with a
date
new
that's
revised date would be fine, as long as it was consistent in every respect with what I just said. It also needs to be
Exactly.
updated because it doesn't have the subdivision endorsement and the proper registry, the registry, the detail that it needs to have. So it is a draft plan in any event, Is that
So-
consistent with what you're saying, John?
Yeah, it is, and I think I heard Mr. Corcoran move to amend the plan so accordingly, and we can vote to amend the plan, and he's going to submit this consistent with the amendment, which, as we've agreed, we'll agree to at this hearing.
Okay. Mr. O'Brien, does that address your issue?
It does, thank you.
Okay. Are there any further questions from members of the board?
I have one additional question,
Mr. O'Brien?
So just to make sure that we are all on the same page, this is the first hearing that I've experienced with the recodification of the zoning bylaw. And in the application, reference is made to the if you will, the original nomenclature for the original citation for the zoning code, which in this, looking for relief from the provisions of section 6A7. Looking at the zoning code, however, that is available on the Town of Milton website, it has been recodified, and I believe that we are looking at newly recodified section 275-10.1. And I just, so two questions. One, Mr. Corcoran, do you agree with that? And two, given that the zoning code has been recodified, should the decision reference the new zoning code with perhaps a footnote noting that previously it was the old nomenclature? So
Yes, if that's appropriate, I would suggest that it be referenced in both ways. I was
Can I
not,
chime in just for a second? Because
Mr. Lynn.
number one, I had thought, I don't really pretend to know the answer here. I had thought that even though the town meeting had recodified the zoning bylaw, that recodification doesn't become effective until it's reviewed and approved by the Attorney General's office, which I don't think has happened.
Hmm.
So I don't know whether I have no problems citing into the new code, but I think we may want to know, number one, is the new code legally effective yet? Has the Attorney General's office given its approval, which I think is required for it to be legally effective? And if it hasn't, I think, Frank, you're absolutely right in the sense you may be citing into the old section, but if we're going to do that, since the new section is going to be effective at some point, you may want to reference the two sections so that somebody who's looking at this will be able to understand that this is the old section, but waiting for the new section to be effective. And the new section may be effective. I just don't know. In fact, I think it would be nice if the town supplied the Board of Appeals with a new code. I haven't seen a new code floating around.
Well, I mean, I simply went on the town's website and as I always do in preparation for these hearings, looking at the zoning section, and honestly, I was surprised. I do not know the answer to the question whether the recodification was approved by the Attorney General or if it needed to be approved by the Attorney General. My only concern is making sure that whomever is looking at or relying on this decision, that eliminate any confusion as to exactly what relief has been requested and what relief is being granted. Now,
I agree 100%. Could I ask one question? And that's Ned. Ned, do you have an idea as to whether this has been approved by the Attorney General's office, or whether it has to? Or am I daydreaming, thinking that the new code needed to be affirmed or blessed by the Attorney General, and whether that's happened yet?
my understanding is it would have to be blessed. I don't know the status of it.
And my memory is that takes forever, because this is terrible, tedious work, and the Attorney General's office got more things to do than to be checking our zoning code for the specificity and the.
They generally have 90 days from the receipt of the certification of the zoning modification from the town clerk.
Yep.
The question is, when did the clerk ship it over to the AG, and whether the AG has has reviewed it? I don't know the answer to that.
And what happens if they don't review it in the 90-day period? Where's Kathleen O'Donnell when we need her?
Right. I think if they don't strike it down within the 90 days, then it's deemed, I think it's accepted.
Yep.
To be
Let me
correct, it
recommend
does
this.
have to be.
Let me recommend this. Whatever the board decides, I'm going to put on the table a friendly suggestion that the appropriate, and to the extent we get to the decision phase of this hearing, the appropriate decision will be written referencing the old reference of referencing the section of the code that we're all familiar with, and the section of the code that is the chapter 275 code, and then we'll make appropriate inquiries as to the effectiveness of which code, which is substantially the same code and have just been renumbered, what the status of that is vis-a-vis the Attorney General's office. Is that acceptable?
yes, I
Yep,
think that's
absolutely.
entirely sensible.
Okay, all right.
I think it's necessary. It's not just acceptable, it's
All right,
necessary.
so that's what we'll do. Let me ask you, are there any members that have any other additional questions? Mr. O'Brien, any more questions?
No further questions.
Mr. Leonard?
I have no further questions, Mr. Temporary Chairman.
Let me ask if there are any members of the public who'd like to speak in support of this application.
I do not have any hands up.
Thank you, Julia. Let me ask if there are any members of the public who'd like to speak in opposition to this application.
No hands up.
Okay. Well, unless there are further questions of testimony from the applicant or questions from the members, I'd like to suggest to the board that in accordance with our customary practice and the provisions of the Commonwealth's open meeting law, we discuss this, the merits of we close the evidentiary portion of the hearing and discuss the merits of the application in public session here and now.
I agree.
Okay.
Yes.
The evidentiary portion of the hearing is closed. I'll open up the decision-making portion of the hearing to the members. Mr. Leonard, do you wish to be heard?
I do very briefly. I'd like to thank Mr. Corcoran for his presentation, which I think is clear, and it's understandable exactly what the applicant is seeking to do here. What we need to do is let the plan catch up with the additions that the board has suggested, and to check to be sure which zoning ordinance we're deciding this under. And I agree with Mr. O'Brien. Even if we're deciding it under the old reference, we can certainly include references to the new zoning code if that makes the decision clear. But I think when it comes to its essence, the application has merit. I don't see any detriment to it whatsoever. I do recall that this was a matter which was forwarded to our town zoning officer, and she did hold a hearing on this. I believe it was a piece of a hearing, it was very short, and thought that something of this nature really was more a matter that should be decided by the full Board of Appeals. So she returned the file back to the board, and hence this hearing. But there's been no opposition to it. One of the lots is 4.5 feet short on frontage. It's an area of the town where there are large lots, and the de minimis nature of the violation, I think, is just that, and should be treated that way. So I would intend to vote in favor of this application with the amendments to the plan and the procedures that Mr. Mullen so eloquently set forth, so that when we finally issue a decision, it'll be coherent with the meeting and with the documents on file.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. Mr. O'Brien?
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. I too agree with Mr. Leonard, and I also want to thank both the applicant and my fellow board members for allowing me to geek out on the plan and statutory reference issues during the course of the hearing. Technical issues, but important ones. So I would plan to vote in support of this application as well.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Now, I'm going to remind the members that I'm still the temporary chairman of this hearing, and I'm going to vote in favor and agree with my colleagues on the merits of the application, which I think has been well prepared and presented and discussed. I agree that it's a de minimis, a change, a modification to the bylaw, and that the variance has merit, and will join my colleagues in supporting and making it unanimous support. I'm going to so thank you, Mr. Corcoran, and thank to the McGrath family for bringing it to the Board of Appeals. let me ask my colleagues for a vote. All in favor of the merits of the application as discussed, consistent with the conditions that have been discussed at this hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Corcoran, congratulations. So your clients have earned or been receiving a variance from the Board of Appeals. You know the procedures that we have. We'll select a member to prepare a report. We'll ask that you submit a revised plan to the member to the Board of Appeals for its file. But in the meantime, we'll prepare a decision consistent with the decision that's been discussed. We'll make it available to the town clerk and there'll be a 20-day appeal period and then we'll request that you record it in the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds, so it'll run with the land. Are there any questions on the board's process or procedures or any further questions and business in front of the board tonight?
Yeah, the only question I'd have, Mr. Chairman, is whether
Temporary chairman, Mr. Temporary Chairman.
Mr. Temporary Chairman, Mr. Very expensive temporary chairman, that since we're dealing with some very technical issues here in the change plan and all of that, whether Mr. Corcoran believes it's in his client's best interests that he submit a draft decision here that's consistent with the plan that he's going to supply us with and for the board's consideration.
Mr.
Be happy
Corcoran.
It depends. A lot depends on how quickly you need it, Ned, and how quickly the board members can. Because the board members, in my view, would need to have all the revised plan and everything to start preparing the decision, and you may be able to do that faster than we can. But that's your call.
I'm happy to prepare a draft for review of the board, and I can submit that with the revised plan.
Does that make sense, Mr. Temporary Chairman?
Temporary chair would support that. Mr. O'Brien?
I agree.
Okay, so that's the process that we'll follow. Thank you, John, for that suggestion. We'll await a draft of an application, a draft of a decision that you can submit to Julia or to her successor. If we have her in place, you do enough business with the town, Mr. Corcoran, that you'll know the status of that, and we'll turn our attention to the written decision as soon as possible. In the meantime, you'll get that information to us, and then we'll expect you to go to the planning board for the A&R plan in the normal course.
That's correct.
Okay,
All right.
thank you very much.
Thank you all.
And Julia, perhaps could you check in and see whether the Attorney General has approved the new zoning bylaw, or whether that is still up in the air, or where that stands? And
Yeah, I just sent a text to the commissioner, so I will get back to you on that.
okay, that'd be great. So we appreciate your help, and we'll miss you at the town clerk's office. I guess everyone down there will be a former member of the former clerk of the Board of Appeals pretty soon.
Yes.
You'll have great luncheons. We'll miss you.
Yes. We'll miss you too.
Thanks for your help.
All right. Thank you.
Good luck to you, Julia.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you all.
Okay, we're going to be adjourned,
And-
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Temporary Chairman.
In my role as a temporary chairman, I'd like to, on behalf of the Board of Appeals, thank Julia for her service. And I appreciate working with her in the time that she's been with us, and wish her luck. We'll put that on the record. Thank you
Thank
very,
you.
very much.
And I second that, and I know Frank does as well.
I'll echo it as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Is there if there's no further business of the Board of Appeals, I'd like to call this, I'd like to call for an adjournment of this meeting, and wish you all a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night now.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
night. Have a great
Good night.
holiday. Give my
Thank you
best.
very much. Good night now.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.